So Kenya is trying to secure about $1.5 billion in terms of loans from the United Arab Emirates. Of course, there have been ongoing talks with the International Monetary Fund as regards how to offset the debts that the country has been plunged in. And of course, has been trying to plug the budget deficit too. But it seems as though the funds, though the talks have been progressive, but they're not coming in as at the time they would have expected it. So they are trying to secure this loan to actually bridge the gap, the financial gap that the country has been plunged in. Don't forget that, the president, that is William Ruto, floated a finance bill that was hugely rejected by the citizens via a protest. And now the country seems to be in a financial quagmire. I want to see if this will be beneficial and if that would actually help the country get out of its financial situation. We have Professor Iraki, economist at the University of Nairobi, who actually joins me right now to help us understand this better. Thank you so much, Professor Iraki, for joining us.
Good morning and good afternoon.
Now, the Kenyan government seems back at the position it was trying to avoid when it proposed the finance bill, and that has to do with borrowing. Now, it is struggling with a budget deficit and currently seeking a $1.5 billion commercial loan from the UAE. Now, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, that's not very surprising, because one of the things that the new government did when it came to power is to set publicly that they are trying to diversify the sources of funding. And UAE seems to be one of the sources. So because we did away with the finance bill, it means that the government has been having a budget deficit. So if you can get money from any source and a very good interest rate, for example, from UAE, it is less than 10%. If you go to the interest rates in Kenyan financial market, it's more than that. So I think the government has found that if it can get good funding from a good source, why not take it?
But an option on ground had been, the floating of the Eurobond. But now the government is looking at a loan with features of about 8.25% interest rate. And the government said it is better than the Eurobond. Of course, the Eurobond, carried a higher interest rate of about 10.7%. But between 8% and 10.7% is still on the high side. So is that a necessary evil, or would you say it's a fair deal with the UAE?
Well, I think it's a good question when you have a choice between Eurobond and a loan from UAE. At the end of the day, the government wants to get the best for the country. So remember, the government has been running a budget deficit. So when it comes to getting loans, which are not very popular from its campaign promises, the government will probably go for the best deal. The best deal happens to be a loan from UAE. But I think the bigger question should be, which is the best deal in terms of the period of payment? So when you look at the two types of loan, one is 10.7%, the other one is 8.7%, but one has a longer tenure. So I think there isn't much big difference. The big difference would be how easy is it to get this loan and put it to the use so that the government can be able to balance its budget and pay for its goods and services. So I think there isn't that much big difference between the two loans in terms of interest rates, if you look at the tenor or the time you are going to pay that loan.
But the issue, Professor Iraki, has to do with the ability of the government to sustain its debts. It's still paying humongous debts based on what it has actually borrowed from international institutions and probably China. Now, having to add this particular one with an interest rate of 8.7% from the UAE, don't you think it will further plunge the country into immeasurable debt burden for the country?
I don't get you the question. It's raining very heavily here, and there is some rain and thunder around.
Oh, apologies. So I said the country, that's Kenya, is currently in a huge debt burden already. Now, having to add this particular one to what it currently pays, of course, in terms of repayments now, don't you think it would probably move Kenya into a debt distress or debt default? Because we're looking at the ability of the country to sustain its debt payments.
I think that's a big issue, because at the end of the day, the interest rate and the interest rate and the principal must be paid someday. And if you remember, one of the big questions when people are demonstrating against the finance deal was whether the country can be able to pay for its loan. And I think that's what the bigger question, that even where you are going to get the loan itself, it is whether the country has the capacity to pay for this loan. But I don't think Kenya has got into debt distress. As far as I'm concerned, if you look at the data, if you look at the statistics, I think we still can pay that debt. It might be a bit stressful, but I think the government should be able to pay that debt at the appropriate time.
Okay, so let's look at how profitable this loan can be. How would this loan now address Kenya's financing gap? What are your expectations in terms of outcomes for the country's economic growth and development?
I think one of the big questions that economists and people on the streets have been asking is, when you get the road, where do you put it into? We believe, or we hope, that when this money is borrowed from UAE or wherever it is borrowed from, there's going to be put into development projects so that the productive capacity of the country is enhanced. We hope that none of the money is going to be put into recurrent expenditure, like paying for wages and bills. But I believe that the government is prudent enough, and they're going to put that money into the right use.
What sectors of the economy would you expect the government to put the money into?
Say it again?
Yeah, I said, what sectors of the economy would you expect the government to put the money into if we are hoping to have accelerated economic growth or turnaround?
If I got the question right, I think some of the sectors that the government might want to put money into the areas like roads. There are a lot of infrastructure development projects in this country. The government has promised that. So I see a lot of money going to infrastructure, education, health, because those are the critical sectors that need to be enhanced so that we can not only create jobs, but enhance the welfare of the citizens of this country.
All right. Well, we are almost closing them anyway. I'd like to understand, are you confident about the accountability and transparency, the way the government has gone about this in terms of getting funds and expending these funds? So in terms of transparency and accountability, are you confident that the government will be able to put to judicious use these funds that it's open to secure?
That has been a very big debate in this country, because if you remember the Eurobond, up to this day there has been controversies about how much money was raised and what we put that money into. So that is probably one reason why the government is very happy to get a lower interest rate, because with what happened with Eurobond, you'd expect the readers to raise the interest rate because of uncertainty. So I think, looking at the need of money, the government need for money because of shelving the finance bill, I think I have confidence that the government will put this money to the right use, because they need that money, and the citizens are watching. From what has happened in the past, the Kenyan citizens have become very vigilant, and whatever money the government gets, they want to see where it is put into. So the voters are watching, and I believe the government will put it in the right use.
All right, thank you so much, Professor X and Iraki. Well, we don't know which one would weigh better, having to have accepted the finance bill, or maybe these funds that are being loaned from other countries. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Sorry, there is a lot of rain around.
Yeah, we understand.
You may not hear me very well.
Of course, we understand. Thank you very much. That's it on Business Edge for today. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV, www.newscentral.africa. That's our website. You can also visit YouTube and other social media platforms. I am Likon Obanjo. Enjoy your day.